meeting to order. A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Calling the roll. Steve.
Here.
Brian.
Present.
Vladimir.
Here.
Charlie.
Here.
And I am also here. Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to agenda approval. Do any board members like to provide comment on the agenda? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. That's 5-0. Actually, on this page. What's gonna, there we go. Sorry. I was changing the page. We are on to, closed session report. There's nothing to report from closed session. Recognition of Measure A campaign committee. Sandra.
Absolutely. Well, we have some special guests in the audience and at the dais that we would love to recognize. So we have Stella Cam, we have Curtis Cole, we have Sangeeth, we have Chris Hazelton, and of course we have Jessica Spicer. I know Pepe was unable to be here tonight, but we want to thank you for your service and your great support of really running a fantastic campaign for Measure A. And I'm sure the trustees have things that they would like to say.
Who would like to start?
I think for the record, I want to recognize how overwhelming a victory this was. I mean, the highest percentages that anybody's seen on a parcel tax approval in a very long time, if ever. And I think that's a testament to the effort of the people that we're recognizing tonight. I mean, the amount of precinct walking and emailing and texting that they organized and did a ton of themselves was unprecedented in my memory of city council campaigns, let alone school board efforts. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, everybody, for making this happen.
Agreed. I don't think I could say it better than Brian. It's absolutely tremendous. And I always knew that our community supported our school district, but actually getting people out to vote is a completely different beast, right? And so thank you for that. Thank you for protecting our programs and our teacher salaries and all the other good stuff that the parcel tax is for.
Yeah, and I do, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I do want to highlight, Chris, though, we had the best teacher participation, I think, that we've ever had
Absolutely,
in a campaign.
100%.
And that's to Chris's leadership with LATA.
No, I have never seen such participation by teachers and staff on these measures, and we've worked on a bunch of these measures before. So, and everybody did so much work, whether it was online, going to people's houses or making sure that we were just getting our message out. I really am speechless as how well we did do. It was not within the realm of what I expected. So I thank you all so much. You are such a great team. Really would not have been able to do it if we didn't have as good a team. So thank you very much.
To help a little help of appreciation.
It's juice.
Martinelli sparklings.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lion's share.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much.
Don't drink it all at once. I don't get this chill right away.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis.
All right, on to superintendent's update.
Yes, so a variety of things for you this evening. I know I've been chatting with individuals, and you all received a letter that I sent out today regarding an incident, an anti-Semitic incident that happened at Egan late Friday. I want to reiterate that we don't tolerate hate of any kind on our campuses. And I really want to give shout out to Connie Colmore and Dina Zakanti, who have been working all weekend, all day today here in Green, coordinating, talking to students, conducting a very thorough investigation, working with families. And we are responding in great ways. And we hope that this is a very isolated incident, and we'll be moving forward with some training for our students at the junior high schools. So we are on top of that, unfortunately. Of course, we all just came back from the AEC conference. We'll be using bits and pieces from our time at that conference as we learned about our building a board governance handbook. So we do have a meeting on Monday, a special meeting, Monday the 11th. We'll start at 6 p.m. To start working on developing our own governance handbook as a team. I sent you an email earlier today to give you the list of all the holiday fun. So the concerts, the holiday fair. So check your email if you haven't. Almond was the first school that had their concert today, and then they begin over the next 3 weeks. So we hope if you're able to come that you do show up. I also want you to be on the alert, and I don't know if Eric will have an update since we talked earlier today, but at some point, maybe Friday, maybe Monday, we're hoping to do a ribbon cutting ceremony for the art inclusion playground here at Covington. It is close, it's been cured. The inspector is coming tomorrow. Once it's approved, we have to take down the fences. And so it's all about timing. I know the school is very eager to get kids onto the playground and to reopen it. So we are excited. So we'll let you know when that detail becomes more clear, hopefully after tomorrow morning. And then just wanted to let you know this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mr. Drummond and I will be hosting the new information digital version for new families. Info night. So if families are interested to join us via Zoom, we'll be starting at 7 o'clock. They can register on the website or call their secretary to figure out how to do that. But we are excited to have share our story with new families interested in coming to LASD. I think that's it for me right now.
Awesome. Moving on to our annual organization election of presidents. Can I get a nomination for president?
Nominate Brian.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Nomination on to election of vice president. Can I get a nomination for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Vladimir. If you'll have the nomination.
I second that nomination.
And you can. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Election of clerk. Ask for a nomination of clerk. I'd like to nominate Shelley Sirke.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we do musical chairs.
No, it's been so fun. I think
I have a thought.
it's the strangest meeting every year. Oh, I'm yeah.
Oh, you're fine.
Just figured it would come this way.
Oh, it's so loud. I've never sat with them.
Oh, if you want to guess.
I've always done it with a sleep.
Steve, how are you?
Long time here.
Back into the two.
Is that the president?
Yeah.
It's kind of a strain.
And we're talking ventilation.
Give 1 moment.
Right on. Does that work? Yeah.
Is it appropriate at this time to thank Jessica for her service as board president?
Certainly
I know.
be appropriate.
Yeah, I know I've appreciated working closely with you for the last year. And it's a big job for our governing board. And so thank you for taking on the extra time and energy it takes to be president of the trustees. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
And for those of you who might not know, Jessica, at the same time as being president of our board, is also president of the County School Boards Association and was doing a ton of work, as we mentioned, on the bond campaign. So how is she still upright? I'm not sure. Sorry. I'm not sure how she's still upright, but
Well, barely.
barely.
It's with great relief that I pass on the folder with the clerk's duties.
Oh, look at you.
Of course.
Oh, legit.
It's so.
All right. Ready to continue? All right. Moving on to, I forget what letter we're on for.
You're on
E4,
E4.
Board 2024 board procedures. Can I get a motion to approve the 2024 board procedures, which are in the packet and are basically continuation of our pre-existing board procedures that just needed by statute to be re-ratified every
So
year.
moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Motion moved by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. Not seeing any discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on E5, board committees and appointments. Hopefully people had a chance to look, sorry. Pull this up before. No.
And tonight is the discussion portion of this item. It's an opportunity to provide input on what committees or appointments you want to be a part of, and then we'll come back for approval at our next meeting, our next regular meeting.
Sorry, I didn't know that. Give me 1 moment to pull the list in front of me.
You want a paper copy, Brian?
No, I'll be good in a second. If you have a paper copy handy, not wasting everybody's time. All right. So let's just go down and see what people think. So starting with budget review committee. I think, so Jessica was doing a ton last year. I believe it's been our general practice for the president to not do a ton of board committees, given the amount of work for the presidency. So going in, I'm sort of expecting to give up most of the committee appointments I had last year, just to set the expectation. So budget review committee.
I'm fine. In general, I'm fine with whatever assignments I have. I'm also fine if anybody else wants to take over something I'm doing.
Okay. Is anybody interested in the budget review committee? We don't have to have 2 representatives on the budget review
If you
committee.
need a second, I can do a second. Steve,
This is all, and as Sandra said, this is all first draft, so we can resolve. If there are 2 people who really want, we can resolve that later. As we need to. City schools committee. Anybody want to?
Committee met this year.
We have not met this year. There's not a lot of work involved, potentially.
So I said I wanted it.
Well,
It's been a lot.
I don't know.
You can take the only spot off. Just
Um,
run with it.
you're, as, I forget your title with the cities thing, is my only question with the cities.
Oh, yeah.
Subcommittee, since you're technically sort of an employee of the,
Not a.
not members,
No.
but anyway,
Okay,
I don't know whether
actually,
anybody else
that's
has that goal, but,
That's a good point.
I can join the
Yeah.
city of Los Altos.
okay.
Or actually, I could do both. I don't mind. Los Altos, so,
they no longer,
Yeah.
Sunset Hills
Yeah.
no longer has a committee to pair with.
Oh, yeah,
So my question is, do we even have that on this table?
yeah.
If they had one, I'd say absolutely we should maintain that, but the Los Altos Hills drop that from their list of committees and their appointments. So I'm going to say maybe we
Well,
revisit that if we need to, versus immediately static.
Well, my suggestion would be to have Steve and Jessica still from our side.
Sure.
And then, with the understanding that there'd probably be less work. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so actually, so the person who gets to vote for members in the county committee of school district organization, we decided a year or two ago to be the vice president ex officio, so that will now be you. Now it'll be Vladimir. If there is one person to be elected at some point, I don't know if there's second fine. Curriculum council. Steve, do you want to continue?
I'm fine.
Anybody else
If anyone else wants to do
have a burning desire to be on curriculum council? Okay. DLAC?
I'm happy to stay on.
Okay. Anybody else? Want to? No? Wellness committee.
That's, yeah,
That-
I'd like
Also,
to,
you
yeah.
want to continue with that? Anybody? Have a burning desire? No, not seeing any. Okay. Charter school meetings.
I'm interested in doing this again.
I'd like to stay on it.
You okay with that? Claire?
We haven't had any, as far as I know, we haven't had any,
Okay. No.
so I'm willing to give up my spot for Jessica.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I assume you're okay with that, Steve?
No, I'm sorry. I jumped in there.
Communications, community relations,
I still like that. My jam.
proved very effective this year, so I think you've earned another year unless
I've been
anyone,
communicating so much, I have no voice.
anybody else, anybody? Check,
Given the transitions going through it, some consistency might be a good idea. So
yeah, we appreciate your continued service there, that unlike some of these has been a lot of work, I think, so
Just a lot of discussion.
thank you. Facilities,
Definitely want to stay there. if they could.
anybody else? Legislative network? Anybody want to place about
What is the legislative?
I guess anything that falls under CSEA's or LAC, Legislative Action Committee, anything that kind of stuff. But has no formal, constitution.
Okay. I'd be interested in it if you are willing to take it.
Sure.
Thank you.
PTA council?
I think you had wanted, well, I had said the last time it should be the president, so.
I mean, that's kind of in practice, and I'm happy to take that over.
I think our first meeting
It's
is.
probably-
It's Wednesday, yes.
Yeah, Wednesday,
I-
and that's-
yes.
I heard the video tentatively putting it on my.
Good job.
And then Santa Clara County School Board Association, our sort of official voting representative.
So so Jessica's the president this year. Can you vote?
I don't.
I can take that.
You want to do that? I mean, I might go up to the meetings anyway, like silently sitting in the back room, but.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that any of us are welcome to show up to any meeting. It's just sort of a question of who is our designated voting, because there's things that have to be voted on. Jessica can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's just like
It's
minutes and stuff.
One, but it's one vote per, like, things have to be voted on, or one vote per
Yeah, we have not,
district.
but it hasn't been anything that big.
Right.
It's just minutes and budget.
Okay, so
Whatever you
Vladimir
wanna
will be
do.
our official rep. And then Shelley's the curriculum equity task force.
Yeah, I'd like
Which
to
is-
stay on that.
Have an issue with that? No? All right. Thank you, everybody. This will be circulated or be put on our consent calendar, or do we have to take action? We have to take action.
Next time.
This will be, right, this will come back to our January meeting for action based on what we've done tonight.
Thank you.
Brings us to tonight's consent calendar. Does any board member want to provide comments on the consent calendar?
I do.
Okay,
Item number 3, certification of election results. To my recollection, which could be very faulty, I've never seen the great seal of the county of Santa Clara officially attesting to our successful election in our board packet. So I just like to point that out.
The timing just worked out well for that.
And to reiterate, 74.8.
What was that again?
74.82%.
Anyone prepared to
Move that we
Give a motion.
approve consent calendar items F1 through 5.
I'll second.
Are you gonna take over?
motion to approve consent calendar items, F1 through F5, made by Steve, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, item G, employee request to address the board. Los Altos Teacher Association, Chris Hazelton.
Yes, I'm back.
We missed it.
Yes, I had quite an October. I took the sixth graders to Walden West, and then I got the cold that everyone has been getting that lasts for 2 weeks, and it was quite a month. But what I really want to focus on tonight is just expressing my gratitude on behalf of the teachers. Yes, I was involved in the campaign, but I can tell you from all of the times where I pulled my phone out of my pocket at recess to check it, and I had 40 mixed text messages from the campaign text thread that seriously, they never stopped working. And that diligence and that work is gonna pay off for our teachers. And I was happy to offer help, to get the teachers to come out and speak to the community, because I knew that our community supports our teachers, and I knew that if they heard from them, that would be very impactful. And I also want to give a special shout out to Eric. I think Eric probably walked like 20 precincts. And I think rather than a bottle of Martinelli's, perhaps we should get him a new pair of shoes. But he really showed up, and I think that when you looked at the canvassing assignments and just how many people, not just from the community, but from the DO, principals, teachers, parents, it was really incredible to see everybody come together. And we got to see that when you come together like that, sometimes the results are amazing. And I also want to give a shout out to Sandra, who maintained hope throughout the process. When there started to be some more negative chatter, it was very emotional for me, because I've never done a campaign or kind of experienced anything like that before. And she kept the focus and the hope going, even when I was already making contingency plans if it didn't pass. And so I want to thank her for that leadership too, because it gave me something to think about hope, and kind of how we look at things that seem hard, and you don't always have to prepare for the worst. So thank you, everyone, and the teachers are thrilled. So thank you so much.
Thank you again for your leadership. We don't have anyone speaking tonight for CSEA, so we'll move on to public comment. It's a general announcement to provide public comment on agenda items tonight. Speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment begins. Your name will be announced when it is your turn to speak. Item H, community comments. This time is reserved for the public to address the board on items not on the agenda. Community members wishing to address the board are allotted up to 3 minutes per speaker. The board and administration welcome the opportunity to listen. However, the board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make brief comments or ask clarifying questions. So we have one speaker, I believe, or no, I'm sorry, 2 speakers. So each speaker will be given 3 minutes. We'll take Amnon first, and then Aaron Kamari second.
Hey, good evening. My name is Amnon Levy. I'm resident of Los Altos. I have 2 boys, Locke and Oak. First, I want to begin with thank you and commending Superintendent Sandra for the email, that she sent, on Friday. That's Friday, today. So we, as I could say, as a community, appreciate that and, looking forward to work with you in any matters, related to this. The issue I want to bring up today is related to ethnic study. And while I understand that there's no preview of this committee over high school, I think it's somehow could pertain to a lower level of education. For example, covering of current event in say junior high, etc. Our understanding of the community understanding of the process for ethnic studies, there's high schools are contracting with vendors to provide content to be taught in high school, and there's a vendor selections and a content approval. However, the format and the program is really, my understanding, is a framework that the school adopt. And once the school adopt the framework, it's the responsibility of the teacher to actually go out and source or procure or develop their own content. And we have a couple of incidents where parents in Los Altos district found on high school Google Drives and website that we download and we looked at, and the content is inaccurate, specifically around the Palestinians-Israeli conflict. Is inaccurate, is biased, it's politically motivated, etc. So the point I want to make today is it feels like there is a process, and I'm not too familiar with the junior high and elementary school for picking up content and providing it to students. But what we feel is that there is kind of a leakage or a drift in the process where there's not complete control and monitoring of what is actually being taught. And we need to pay attention to that. The incidents that I mentioned just now, we raised it with the appropriate schools. They took down the content and they're not going to teach this. But the question is, how do we prevent this in the lower level of school? Last point.
One more sentence.
Yes. Why is it important? What we're seeing today in the universities, I believe, is a result of, it's a funnel, right? As a result of us bringing up those kids all the way to university. So we're asking how do we get to a point that the university students are behaving like that? And I think we're planting the seed, we're sowing the seeds very early, and we need to pay attention to that and ensure that what we're delivering for the kids is clean and objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, can I comment on the process? There's a fantastic process here that you're not allowed to submit requests to speak after the session started.
I'm sorry, for clarification, you're not allowed to submit once we've, on any particular topic,
Right,
once we've begun discussion.
but
So-
do we have a topic here or this is
Well,
open?
the items on the agenda here, what we don't want is people signing up to rebut each other. Which is why
Exactly.
we have the process
So,
that we
yes,
have.
I recommend the city council adopt this.
We will take the compliment on our process. Next speaker.
Hope they won't get as long. Good evening. My name is Eran Kamari. I'm a parent of 2 kids at Egan. I've spoken to all of you. I wish I were here for a different topic. I don't want every time that you see me here to talk about this topic. It is very unfortunate of this incident at Egan just this past Friday, and I certainly hope it's an isolated incident. Truly hope that. I don't want to talk about the incidents. There's privacy of the individuals. There's an ongoing inquiry by the principal. I would like to just keep it to 2 things. One is the importance of communicating the policy. And I do want to thank you, Sandra, for the communication. It was very clear. It was to the point. And it was prompt. which is great. So again, thank you very much, and pass my thank you as well to Principal Collymore, which I'm communicating with her as well. The second thing, I guess it's related to what Anna was talking about, education. I mean, I'll be very blunt and say that it really troubles me that a 14-year-old gets to do what was done. And I'm sure nobody's happy about it. And again, just for the benefit of the doubt, I'm going to be saying that it's out of ignorance and lack of education. And I think, what has been sort of realized, I've started to realize this past few months, is how much poison is being thrown around in the social media, whether it's Twitter or TikTok or Facebook or any other social network like YouTube, which almost, banks on people watching things they want to watch. It reinforces their opinion that they are there to begin with. And this is a real challenge. And I think it's a challenge that doesn't just lie upon the education system. Obviously, education has a big part of it. It also lies within the parents. I think education is the way to go and deal with this. I am very well, thankful for the workshop that's going to be initiated in Egan. I will say again that I want to find a way how parents and educators can work together on this, because I don't think that this is something that, we just throw at the schools to go and fix. And I do welcome any opportunity that there will be for us to work together, both, again, parents from whatever backgrounds, any background, it doesn't matter. I truly hope and believe that this community is built out of reasonable and loving people. And this is a real challenge for us as a society. It wasn't like that maybe 20 years ago, and this is where it is. So I'll finish with that. Thank you again for the note. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for coming and speaking. We will now move on to our action discussion items. I-1 Facilities Master Plan update. Mr. Welakevich, you want to introduce?
Sure. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having Brent McClure from CAW Architects tonight to kind of give a brief update on how the facility master planning process is going, and just talk about how things are going. So Brent, thanks for coming to be here tonight to present.
Everybody, thanks for having me here. I'm really grateful and thankful to have been selected with our firm to be working with you all. I think some big shoes to fill. The fact that you passed your parcel tax at 74.28%. 82 or 28?
82, get it?
You know what, that's 75. It was a rounding
It
error.
really is a rounding error.
It's just so exciting to kind of, I think, pivot from that in a lot of respects to then move into kind of looking at your facilities. We're just getting started, so we put just a few slides together to kind of introduce ourselves and the process and what we'll be doing over pretty much between now and June. So CAW Architects, we are located in Palo Alto. We're pretty much right up the street. We've been doing K-12 work for over 20 years. I've been leading master plans for Sequoia Union High School District, Portola Valley School District, Los Lomitas Elementary School District, Los Gatos. So a lot of districts that in some ways kind of have a similar fit and feel, I think, to Los Altos. In addition to that, we've done a lot of school buildings of pretty much almost every type, size, and shape on a public school campus. Experience kind of beyond that at the university level, private sector, private schools, and we have also worked with the town of Los Altos with the Pinewood School. I don't know if that's going to help my cause here or hurt it, but we've had quite a lot of experience with the planning department there, which is actually with a lot of success as well. So I wanted to just sort of talk about what is a master plan, kind of help bring everybody sort of collective, knowledge kind of up to speed. It's easy to visit the sites and say, boy, let's replace this and put something new here. And it's like, there's a lot more that goes into it. It's really about planning and identifying needs and understanding funding sources and all of these other aspects that play into it. Really kind of breaks into 4 categories that we see, sort of there's programs, facilities, sort of the data and the funding. Programs is looking at like a lot of the educational needs. So for example, you've got these STEM classrooms, and we've been walking the sites and talk about that in a minute. And it's fascinating to see how every school is utilizing them, some more than others and some in different ways. And so really like the planning process will explore some of that as to how facilities can kind of best support some of these wonderful programs that you have on your campuses. We'll be looking at the facilities just from a standpoint of wear and tear. So where things that don't really affect programs, but like how old are the roofs and when's the last time the asphalt's been tuned up, for example. All of this can't be done without the eye of funding. So we're gonna be working with the district to understand bonding capacity. That's sort of outside our scope, but it'll be running in parallel. I'll talk about that briefly in a little bit. And then as projects take shape in the plan, we'll be doing some budgeting and kind of setting out what, some potential costs might be. And then also looking kind of at a high level with some data. So how many students are each of your campuses? What's the school site capacities? And looking at sort of balancing and aligning all that. So all of that kind of feeds into establishing sort of project needs, guiding principles. And then from that, we'll create a plan that will identify a series of projects at each of the school sites. They won't be like designed per se, but they'll be identified with some basic assumptions. And then we'll be looking at, basically budgeting those. And, in master planning, what we run into is that the needs always outstrip the available funding. So part of this exploration, working closely with the district and all of you through the process, will be identifying what are the top priorities, what might be deferred or be what we sort of sometimes call like an on-deck project if funding becomes available. And because the needs usually outstrip the funding that's available almost by a factor of 3 to 1. And usually every district I work with, they get a little, sometimes it's disheartening, but it's like, no, that's commonplace and there's ways to work through that. So the process, we put sort of 2 slides together. One is just sort of this diagram that talks about, we sort of break it up into sort of 3 phases or sort of 3 buckets. The first is really, we call startup and discovery. That's us preparing site background drawings, collecting data, working with the district to just sort of get as much history on qualitative and quantitative information that we possibly can. Our job that we see as a master planning architect, a lot of what we do is really to kind of immerse ourselves in your district, in your culture, to really kind of absorb the DNA as best we can. And that closely held relationship we think is vital to the success of a plan, because ultimately the goals of the plan need to be sort of, uniquely tailored to your community. It needs to be your community plan. And so part of that's really important, that short but sort of brief process. We then pivot into the assessment phase, and that's walking the sites, both in sort of 2 different ways I'll talk about in a minute. We do a lot of online surveys, and online surveys are important because we can touch a lot of people, but then also not overly commit too early with expectations by the types of questions that we ask that might happen in a public meeting. And then we take all of this data and information and we kind of analyze. And then at that point, at the end of the assessment phase, we don't have solutions yet or ideas as to what the community wants to do within your district, but more of like, what are the needs that are being identified in the communities? And then from there, we pivot into a more publicly facing approach, which is actual master planning, where we'll go out to the school sites, have in-person stakeholder engagement sessions. We'll have a handful of district level, sort of district-wide stakeholder engagement sessions as well. And that's where site plans will take shape. And then we'll go through the prioritization, the budgeting, and the funding exercise. We've also worked at kind of having board check-ins, so sort of like a beginning and a middle and an end. So today is the beginning, kind of introducing what it is we'll be doing. Our hope is to come back at the end of the assessment phase to kind of say, hey, we've done all this work. Not sure how we're going to solve it yet, but here's what we're seeing that the needs are. And then at the end, we would come back and then sort of present a draft plan. Now, I didn't know we'd be going to the optometrist today. I don't know if you all can read that, but just to sort of, I'm gonna stand over here and kind of brief. Do you see this on your screens or?
Yeah.
no?
Yeah.
You do? Okay, good. I'm gonna stand over here and
It's
just
on my
gonna
chart.
talk to it real briefly. So basically what we have is we go from November to the end of May. Is sort of what our timeline is to what we're looking at. The beginning over here is really in November, the sort of startup phase that I was talking about, and that overlaps with the assessment phase, which is into here. We've already led and done some principal online surveys. We're in the process of doing site walks. I personally walked 8 of the 9 campuses. I got Santa Rita's the last one. Met all of your principals. We have a separate team that's doing a detailed conditions assessment that's looking at roofs and pipes and, you know, just the conditions, the physical conditions of the buildings. We're then going to work in this assessment phase with pushing out an online survey to faculty and then a separate online survey to parents. That'll go in December. It might trickle into the very beginning of January, depending on schedule and timing with the holidays. And then we're gonna also do, in this phase, it's really important that we see we're gonna do some focus group sessions, and it's yet to be determined if that's gonna be one big meeting or a couple of different meetings. And that's at the district level where we will meet and explore, you know, sort of topics, you know, surrounding curriculum, food service, you know, aspects of the district, but understanding them at a district-wide level. We see that's really important because a lot of times if you rush and meet with school sites early on, you can sometimes get little slices of different opinions from smaller constituencies, which then might sort of not misguide the process, but sort of, you know, cloud the lens, if you will. And so then at this point, kind of, as we roll into sort of early January, mid-January, we'll kind of compile and try to make sense of all the findings. We'll have met with the core team a couple of times. At the end of this, we'll meet with the core team up here, sort of mid-January. And then we'll pivot into sort of the publicly facing aspect of planning. So the first step will be, the circles kind of represent bigger meetings and workshops. So we're gonna have a district-wide sort of stakeholder group, which would consist of a cross-section of parents, couple, maybe some faculty, but from principals, district staff, probably some board members. And that'll be to look at sort of goal setting and identifying sort of priorities that make sense to you kind of coming out of the needs. We'll then go away and start to draw stuff. And then after that, we then pivot back and then we'll start to go out to each of the school sites and kind of show them, here's where things are starting to take shape. Here's what we've seen from the needs assessment. Here's what the district-wide you know, stakeholder engagement group is saying. Get their input, have some back and forth, and then we roll into the, you know, kind of turn the crank, and that's when we look at budgeting, funding capacity, prioritization, then at the end. And then the target goal will be then coming back to you all in May with, fingers crossed, a plan that we're really excited about. I'll briefly mention there will likely be, at Eric's direction, a parallel process that will likely start in the first of the, you know, or the beginning of the year, and that will be looking at the steps needed to put a future bond measure on the ballot. So if the goal is to proceed with a bond measure in November, there will then be steps with another team to look at, you know, bonding capacity, polling, and all those other things. But the reason that's important, I want to stress is that as we have the needs that kind of come out in early January, that then sets up sufficient time from like February, March, and April for you all to be working in concert with that. So then at the end of, you know, as you come towards the end of your calendar years to kind of be poised to, you know, to move forward with that if you so choose. Okay, so where we are right now, as I mentioned, we've done online surveys with all of the principals and gotten feedback just from their perspective. That's just to kind of get us kicked off and get an understanding of your campuses. We walked 8 of the 9 campuses with our team, with the principals, kind of really just understanding, you know, kind of seeing it through their eyes firsthand and us getting up to speed with, you know, initial needs. The facility assessments are in progress. We're starting this week just to draft up the faculty surveys and looking at scheduling those other components of the assessment phase. And so, we'll be, as I've written right here, faculty parent surveys are upcoming, district level focus groups, and then kind of, compiling all the assessment. So that's it that I have for you all, kind of giving an overview. So if there's, I guess, turned over to questions at this point or comments.
I have a clarifying, this is one for clarifying questions, right?
Let's see, sorry, I'm still adjusting. Yeah. Is there any clarifying questions?
Yes, I have one. So I always get very leery when I see online surveys because some of our parents don't have access to that or are not comfortable with that. But then I did see that you have focus groups that gives a lot of parents opportunity to participate, but will those focus groups be done in Spanish as well as English? Like, will you make an effort to reach out to some of our parents who may not be so comfortable with English? Or Mandarin, better?
That's something that we can explore with the district. At this point, the sort of the early stage of that parent outreach, and that's something that we can work together with, Superintendent McGonagall and Eric, to explore that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other clarifying questions?
Sort of clarifying question. Where in your chart does the board provide its input to, your report?
So back to the schedule, we haven't set, there's a couple things. One is, and I don't want to speak out of my lane, but, there's a district-wide sort of stakeholder group, and that could consist of a couple of board members to sort of, or however you want to structure it, to be, more deeply involved. We have a meeting at this point. There's the possibility of refining sort of the back end of this on the engagement, depending on what the district would like to do. This was sort of how we put this plan together to try to balance efficiency, time, cost, fee, those kinds of things, and a balance of also, robust engagement. But as far as the number of touches in through here can be adjusted in a variety of different ways.
Can I build off of Ryan's question? To further clarify? Will there be a board member on the core team?
There can be. I think at one point in time, there was a third team up there, but we looked at several different things, but yes, we could have a board member on the core team.
Well, there was talk of a steering committee
Yes.
in addition to the core team, which I think was mooted to perhaps include a board member or two. And so my actual impression was that the goal setting workshop might be that steering committee, since I don't see the steering committee elsewhere.
Correct. That's what I
on
was
this.
reading too. Yep.
Correct.
On this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to clarify sort of on the schedule is the steering committee would consist of that district-wide level kind of
Right.
cross-section, kind of give that guidance. Their primary touches would be sort of goal setting, prioritization, and there's flexibility if it's needed to, add an additional meeting or two in between if there's touches that make sense for this committee.
We just assigned board appointments, and one of them is facilities and modernization. And I think plugging that person into this makes some sense to me, but that's my take.
That makes sense.
Right, yeah, are we in the comment phase?
Any other clarifying questions? Do we have any requests for public comment? Seeing none, then we are now at the board member comment phase.
My feeling is that I don't think it's a good idea to leave the entire board to say yea or nay on the final report without having a chance to look at interim stages. What those stages consist of, I'm not exactly sure, but I do think that the board needs to at least provide a sort of general direction for you. And again, I don't know what that normally takes, but I don't think we have, or at least I don't have much facility knowledge other than, oh, it's got a roof. But I would like an opportunity to look at where you're going and why you think you should go in this particular direction as opposed to that particular direction.
Vladimir, I'm wondering if we go back to this slide, so we have, we're in 1, we have a 2 and a 3. And right after this second board meeting, I think is when more of that steering committee, which might have 1 or 2 of you, and I wonder if in one of our meetings, that the representatives on that meeting could come back and report to the board what was discussed. We had talked about having kind of standards for the schools and, you know, goal setting and all of that. So I think that that could be an additional information point for the board.
Discussion point.
I certainly would hope that who's on the facilities committee? You, oh my God. Okay. All right.
A man of so many words.
That's true.
So I appreciate and I value the input of the board member who's most involved. But I think that we need something more than simply a board member reporting what's happening. That's sort of, if you want a high level draft, I don't know. I've never done this before, which brings me up to my another question. Do you have some example facility master plans of work that you've done that you're willing to share with us?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be nice, because that way we can see what the final outcome looks like, and we can sort of gauge where we are and stuff like that. The other comment I had was, we've used Thought Exchange before, right? On some things, and that's a way of gathering community input. And that might be a valuable thing to look at, not particularly that company, but whatever it is.
There are online surveys and, so using some sort of service.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Looks great to me.
Yeah, it looks like a
Yeah, I
great
mean,
program.
I took the timeline on the next slide as sort of what you guys are committing to do.
Right.
Certainly doesn't mean that those are the only meetings at which we can discuss things. And I think both Sandra and Jeff before you were good about bringing to the board, when you discovered in your work questions of policy where you needed board direction, bringing those to our attention in a timely fashion. Because we don't need to, I don't think, micromanage the
Oh, no.
details, which should be driven by our program and our wheel and all the other direction that we've set before, but I imagine there'll be the occasional question that we would ask for our direction on. Okay, any other comments? Thank you very much. Thank you for joining today. Moving on to I2, first interim financial report. Mr. Wallachevich will present the 2023-24 first interim financial report for review and approval.
So good evening. Tonight we're here to update the board on first interim, and this is where we account for all the changes in revenue and expenditures since from July 1 to October 31st, and there have been many changes and really a lot of good news before we ended from last year's budget. I want to kind of highlight some of those changes. And again, we do adopt our budget in really in the middle of May. A lot of things have changed since then. We adopt our budget before the state even adopts theirs, so it's always an interesting timing. Our budget was adopted in June, really a month before the state adopts theirs. And there's been some significant changes that have helped us improve our fund balance, which we talked a lot about these during our unaudited actuals in September, but I want to highlight those. And I'll highlight the same items that we talked about unaudited actuals. We've been trying to be very creative with the use of one-time funds. It really has helped our district's financial situation. We applied for a transportation grant for $84,000, and that reduces the amount of money that we give to special ed for transportation. So that was in the positive direction. We used about $1.8 million of some one-time funds, and that was the art music discretionary block grant and also the learning recovery block grant. And those were one-time funds. We finished and used all of the COVID funds. We had a lot of different pots of money from state and federal government of COVID funding. Those were all utilized last year. We also had an increase of local revenue. And then we decreased our contribution to the cafeteria fund by another $350,000. And then we also applied for a kitchen infrastructure grant to offset some of the construction costs for the serveries for the universal meals mandate. So those were all some really positive things that we utilized. And in fact, today we applied for another kitchen grant today for another 100,000. We submitted our application to CD. I don't know when we'll get it, or if we do get it, but we're trying to our best to really, any pots of money that are out there to really go after those. In 23-24, the best news that we heard everybody talk about today, and thank you for nice comments, Chris. Yes, my shoes are a little worn out. But we did, the Measure A passing, when we adopted our budget, in last June, we had to show that Measure A was not gonna pass, and that's, you can't assume it's going to. So in our third year, we showed it not passing, and that was a decrease of $3 million to our general fund. So by having last year's positive fund balance and this year's parcel tax, our finances look a little bit different. We have, the state gave us $1 million, where they were gonna claw back all of the discretionary block grants. We actually received $1 million, and we actually did receive that money. That's gonna be updated in our budget. The one thing that we didn't show, in our budget was Prop 28. We don't know when we're gonna receive the money. We're hearing sometime February, March, and then when we do receive the funds, we'll put together a Prop 28 plan and be able to utilize those funds. And then we also applied for a grant called CalShape, which will reduce the maintenance cost. We're gonna be talking about an RFQ process soon, to hire a builder to do some of that work for us, and that will help us defray some of the maintenance costs that we spend a lot of money on. So we feel all of these things are all really good news for the district. So when you look at where your budget is from last May and June, it looks a little bit different. We still have some concerns, and there's still some challenges for sure. Some of those obviously is the district has created a group called Expanded Cabinet, which we bring in the directors of some of the bigger, larger departments to look at operational efficiencies. How can we be mindful of expenditures? And also, we've talked about this several times about right-sizing staffing. Some of the one-time funds that we use to hire additional staff have been exhausted and used. And so we have to get back to pre-COVID levels of staffing, getting our staffing to match enrollment. So these are things that we're working with. Curtis, who was here earlier, and Stella's here, CACF are partners with the district, really advising the district on the use of the parcel tax and our finances, and looking at helping us come up with some solutions to look at some efficiencies. The number one thing we've talked about is really we need to be more competitive to attract and retain staff, and that is still a challenge for us. And it is also a goal for us. And so we're working on both those two things together. The Federal Reserve is still battling inflation. Inflation has slowed, but it's the impact of our finances. Our fixed costs are going up. Insurance has gone up. Healthcare premiums starting January next year are going up 13%. Workers' comp, utilities which I'll talk about. There's a lot of things that are still impacting our budget. And then 3 items I want to point out. The TK program, Universal Meals and Special Education, they are really not fully funded. And I think that is a challenge to our district. As a basic aid school district, we do not get extra funding from the state for these programs. And so that is a challenge, and I'm going to highlight some of those programs and what those costs really are for the district. So since the budget was changed, our property tax has grown from previous year to 5.72. We adopted 5.5. So we're right where we should be, where we thought we would be, a slight increase. Now, this is a number that we watch, and we really rely on the county assessor's office. They give us very good information on their projections. And they gave us a number, and then it actually got decreased a little bit more. There are some roll corrections. And so what our property tax growth is, but I always look at how much actual collections are. Because a lot of people, if they've purchased their home and it gets reassessed, and if they say, hey, I bought my house and now it's a lower value, they ask the tax collector, I want my home reassessed, and it could be at a lower value, and they call those roll corrections. So a lot of times your projection might come a little bit different than your actual collections. Additional revenue, which I mentioned, of 1 million. And then this is just a paper only transaction. It's called STIRS on behalf. In our budget, we have to put on paper how much our revenue and expenditures are. And so we had to reduce the revenue, but then we also had to reduce the cost of STIRS on behalf below. Our expenditures, when you look at our budget, at adopted, we never carry over in your adopted budget, you never show restricted funds. which are carried over from year to year if there's a balance. And also the site carryovers are never budgeted. So you'll see the expenditures hitting the books in first interim. And if you go back in all of our financials, you'll always see the same trend. Many districts are deficit spending because of these site carryovers and restricted carryovers. Staffing increase, which I'll talk about some TK additional staffing this year and the TK aides. So people also don't forget when you hire a new TK teacher, you also have to hire some aides to help out. Our utilities, we have been hearing about this and it's been an ongoing trend. PG&E already announced they're going to be raising your utility rates 13%. So we increased our budget in utilities for an extra 200,000 to cover us for this year. And then our decrease of contribution to the cafeteria fund. We're seeing a decrease in participation this year, and we're not sure if that's just the novelty of the new universal meals has worn off. So we are seeing less kids having meals, but the good news is some of the rates, the reimbursement rates from the National School Lunch Program have increased a little bit to offset some of that. Local property tax growth is a 5.7. The parcel tax for this year is 9.5, but in the multi-years, starting July 1 will be 10.4. So that's all good news. We do our in lieu of transfer to BCS this year is $10.7 million. And that's almost $1 million increase from the previous fiscal year. And then not included in our revenue is $390,000 at Prop 28. We will update this in second interim once we know we received the fund. And last year, I remember getting some questions and we were very careful to not spend the one-time monies until we knew we were gonna actually receive it, because last year's state government was in flux. So we're very cautious last year, and we'll do the same with Prop 28. It is a law, so we know we'll get the money, but we're just not sure when, because the state, you know, many of you are hearing about the state, and next year's state budget is not looking as great as people have been hearing about.
Eric, Prop 28 is what?
That is the art, music, law that was passed last November of 22. And we're finally going to be receiving the funds sometime next year, we think. And there's ongoing money as well. It's based on your ADA and then also your unduplicated pupil count. So general fund revenue, local and parcel tax is really a huge percentage of our budget. I mean, 92% of our budget is local in nature, which is property taxes and the parcel. So thus, the reason, you know, when that parcel tax passed, that was actually a pretty big deal for the district. So thank you to everyone in this room. Just great that passed. We're very fortunate we have such a supportive community. Local property tax, you can see what we adopted. And there's a slight decrease in unsecured property tax and homeowner exemptions, but a slight increase in secured. And Los Altos does not receive a lot of unsecured commercial property taxes. We're predominantly a residential community, so the bulk of our property taxes from secured properties, homes, residential homes primarily. So we saw a slight increase, but we also are seeing less home turnover as well. 3-year summary. I like to always show the 3-year, see how we're trending in the last 3 years. You can see from 2021 to 21-22 a 5.3% growth. Then we had a nice growth last year, and then this year you're seeing the slowdown, and that a lot of that is going to be from less housing turnover. Talking with the residential real estate agents, the home values are holding in value, but that's based on supply and demand. There's not a lot of inventory out there, so the homes are staying pretty stable in prices. But I was reading a report the other day, San Francisco saw housing drop $86,000 per home. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen in our community, but it's just something to be mindful of and be cautious of as we look into the future. Included in our multi-year budget is a 6% increase. So last year's budget had a 6% increase for all staff. This current year adopted budget included that. Step and column is about 1% for all 3 groups. So every year, as if we do have no salary increases, step and column is about 1%, which is about $500,000 per year, just for people to move on to step and column. Our increased health care benefits was about $146,000 total, and some of that is also included is our retirees, our OPEB liability for retirees. We do have some health care benefits for them, and that's included in that increase. And this is a good picture of TK. So in 21-22, we had 2 TK sections. Last year, we had 4 TK sections. This year, we have 6, and there was pressure to probably have another section. But if you look at the cost of the program, just TK, we got some one-time, infrastructure transitional kindergarten grant of about $155,000. We received no extra additional funding from the state. So TK cost about $235,000 per TK section. So if you, every time we add more TK classes, that's the aides, the teachers, and this is really just salaries and benefits. It's not facility use, furniture, all the other costs that come up with TK. So this is a good picture of just the staffing alone of what that cost is. And it's pretty monumental. When you look at our budget, that is a bit, that's a 3% raise right there, ongoing, right, every year. Cafeteria fund, we adopted a budget at 1.458 for our general fund contribution. We felt pretty comfortable with the new increased reimbursement rates that we could get that down to 1.1. We also had some money set aside for some capital expenditures, and we're gonna try to use some one-time grant money to offset that, and that will decrease our general fund contribution. And we're trying to be very creative, using one-time money to pay for some of these serveries. We were renting a lot of equipment. We're trying to now buy equipment using the one-time funds, and that will help decrease us renting it and decrease our contribution to the cafeteria fund. Special education contribution, and this is another unfunded, really, that we receive a little bit of money. If you look at the revenue, we leave a little local and state revenue, very little federal revenue, and the rest of it has come from the general fund. If you see our general fund contribution of 11.8 at adoption, and we felt with some open staffing, Jen Kiker and her staff have been great working with to try to find some openings and be more resourceful with our current people, and we're able to get our contribution down about 480,000. This also includes transportation and non-public school as well. When that all other costs is pretty significant. Multi-year projections, we always have to budget for the current year and the 2 out years. So our current year property tax growth is 5.7%. In the out years, we always budget conservatively, and we feel that the current real estate market and the interest rates 4% and 3% are good numbers to use. And then our next property tax meeting with the county assessor's office will be in February, and we'll have some more updated numbers for you then. Right now, the trend for next year's property tax growth at 4% is looking pretty close to that, and as we get more information, we'll be updating our budget accordingly. This is the great news to share. Parcel tax of this year is 9.5, but the renewal for the next 2 out years is 10.4, and there's a slight COLA in there as well, which is great news for us. Lottery unrestricted is going to remain the same, and then due to the charter school, the large increase that we've had the last couple of years, so the charter school will go down a little bit. And the reason is COLA is estimated at 2% or less. For budgeting purposes, we're going to budget 2%, and as our numbers change, we'll update those accordingly. Second column in the multi-year expenditures. This year, with the help of CACF, the Budget Review Committee, district staff worked together to reduce 18 FTEs. And a lot of that was from retirement and attrition as people moved, left the area. And then we haven't decided or really worked on exactly what that's going to look like, but our expanded cabinet is looking at some efficiencies and how we can be more efficient as the people are leaving the district. Does that position have to be replaced and so on? And then health and welfare benefits. We feel this huge increase this year from Kaiser and some of the other healthcare providers. We feel that will level off. We feel 7.5% of the annual increase is a pretty good number to use. In our multi-year budgets, that is the number that we're budgeting it for at this time.
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
Because this was supposed to be on my update, but I forgot, and it just is perfectly aligned with this. We have put out a notice to our staff that we will offer a $1,000 early notification incentive for folks who are going to retire at the end of this year if they notify us by January 12th. So that helps us understand where we can be more efficient, and we're hoping we don't have to deal with thinking about layoffs. That we want to make sure that we are staffing and being able to hire people competitively. So the earlier we know that, the better off it is for our organization. So I meant to tell you that earlier.
Definitely.
Where would be, sorry, you said the word
Yeah.
layoffs,
Yeah.
where would have been the situation where we would be laid off?
say that one more time?
You said layoffs and then scared the crap out of me. when you said
Yeah,
the word.
so we're still running at a budget deficit.
Okay,
And we need to continue to find efficiencies. And since 85% or so of our budget is staff, we look at hopefully attrition, retirements, move outs and all of that, right? We did go through a layoff process this past year to right size our LVN staff. But so these are all the things that we're looking at. Yeah, that's
How much
not what
is-
we want to do.
What's Hazelton cost us?
oh my God.
We love you, Chris.
Yeah.
We did. I would never suggest.
We also, in our multi-year revenue, we have to look out in the out years of taking into account the property tax projections, which is our biggest funding source for the district. And then to see the very little federal funding we receive, we're still operating and then the other financing sources, that is a transfer out to the cafeteria fund. So this year we're projecting at 1.1 and then the multi-year is 1.25. And we update those periodically. We update our budget several times. We're always looking at our multi-year revenue. Because that is really the driver of our budget expenditures. We have an idea what expenditures are gonna be, but if the revenue is always changes in a basic aid school district. Multi-year expenditures in the multi-year, we're looking at supplies, and you'll see the supplies and other. That is because when we have the carryover, the site funds, the restricted carryovers and the one-time funds, it's in supplies and other. And then if you look in the next 2 out years, that's gonna be based on our current budget. You never carry over restricted funds. And so I just want you to notice that. That's why you'll see that spike in supplies and other for this current budget year, but in the out years, you won't see that out there. Multi-year projections are beginning balance, which I mentioned at the beginning, really from unaudited actuals to today. Really good news. The use of a lot of one-time funds and some really coding people to the restricted side of the budget, which is saving your unrestricted side. And you can see a decrease in fund balance of 5.5. But in the out years, you can see our deficit decreasing, and our percent reserves looks a lot different based on some really good news from the parcel tax passing and some use of the one-time funds. So at the end of this year, our projected reserves are 18.9, 16.7, and 14.5 year in the out years. And we feel those are really good numbers for us, but we will be updating them when we get into second or into March. And we're hoping that we'll see some good news. Some key budget deadlines. We're here tonight on first interim. I know a lot of people are very nervous about the governor's January proposal, which will be done in really about a month from now. I'll be heading up to Sacramento for that school services presentation. We'll be looking at enrollment projections. We're almost close to certifying our CBEDs. Our enrollment for this year is very flat. And we feel the extra 2 sections of TK has really kept our enrollment pretty stable for this year. So that's good news for us. And our final audit report will be out at the end of December. And then really, great news, the district will be able to meet our financial obligations for the current year and the 2 subsequent fiscal years. And this is an action item, so we'll be asking the board to approve our first interim financial records.
Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? Board members? I have one, which is you mentioned PG&E and the utility rate increases, and I thought we had a power purchase agreement with the company that, I thought we had a power purchase agreement with, as a part of the whole solar panel structure that protected our electric costs.
Yeah, it's based on how much we generate, and so despite us generating a lot of electricity, it does offset the cost. We still, if there's a huge, large increase, we still have to pay that increase for PG&E.
Okay, because we're using more than we generate on the panels.
Yeah, and also just the rates themselves are also increasing. And then we'll be having Phil Gomez with Forefront. They'll be coming in to do a Terra Verities actually with, and they'll be doing their annual update. We'll have him come in, I believe, in January. Usually won't be have him come in. Okay, that'll be actually a good timing for that. Great.
Yeah, questions? Okay. Are there any requests for public comment? See none, we move on to board discussion. Any further discussion? This agenda item? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Whoa.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your indication.
Yeah,
Apologies.
sorry. I get it. I just expect you to turn this direction. Eric, I don't know if we have this option or not for electricity. I was also surprised by that electricity. At our home, we have 100% renewable. And I don't know whether the increase is good, whether we're gonna suffer the same increase that PG&E customers have. So my question is, first of all, do we have the option of going to 100% renewable energy? Which we buy from suppliers? And secondly, if we do that, and if we can do that, will we then sort of not suffer the increases of PG&E for non-renewable energy?
You know, I know renewable energy is, they always do, can you be like net zero and generate as much electricity as you use? I don't think we're there yet at the district, but if Brent can design it in our master plan, it's possible.
No, this is, we don't generate any, at home, I don't generate any electricity. I buy 100% renewable energy.
Correct.
And I think I pay more than PG&E would charge. But I'm not sure whether we would have the same increases that PG&E would give us.
You know, we're part of the Silicon Valley, I can't remember the name of the term, it's the Energy Coalition. And so in our PG&E bills, you'll actually see how much is actually, when we have to buy the renewable, but we buy the renewable from Silicon Valley Energy Coalition at a lower rate. So we do benefit from some renewables, but not, our district itself doesn't generate any. Other than the solar. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
I know one of the challenges for us with solar generation is that each of our school sites is basically a different meter. So even though we have excess space in some of our larger parking lots, it does us no good to generate there because it does no good to generate more than we use at any given time. Okay. Now, entertain a motion to approve the first interim financial report.
I'll give you the courtesy of finishing your sentence before I second. Second.
Any further board discussion? Moved, approving interim report moved by Vladimir, seconded by Shally. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to item I3, resolution 23/24-09, authorization to increase/decrease income and expenditures.
Sure, this is the routine item after we have first interim pass that we ask the board to adopt resolution 23/24-09 to authorize budget increases and transfers between major accounts to balance the budget as necessary at first interim. This is an action item, and we're asking you to adopt resolution 23/24-09.
Any questions from the board?
I have a comment.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Any requests for public comment? No. Any requests for comment?
Yes. I don't understand this at all. I don't know where the numbers come from. I don't know where the funds go. And I made this comment several times before. And at one point I asked Randy can you do something else that I can understand? So I always vote for it because I don't know that we have any option, but I don't understand this. And I doubt that any other board member understands it. Maybe I'm mistaken. So I would ask that we do something different that has the same information. So that's all I'm gonna say right now.
We can work on a much nicer, friendlier version, for sure. We can do that.
So, for example, contributions unrestricted to restricted, $682,000. There should be a balance someplace else that receives that money. And I don't see it here.
Yeah.
You don't have to explain.
That's okay.
Okay, but that's the kind of thing that I don't understand. Okay.
Further comments?
And I want to acknowledge Lirio and the business staff for all the hard work they did to put the budget together, help us with first interim. It does take a village to pass a parcel tax, but it also does take a village to adopt the budget, make all the updates. I really want to thank Lirio and the business staff for all their hard work as well.
Okay. I will now entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Should
So-
anyone like to make one?
Yeah, I move that we approve the resolution as presented.
Second. All right. Any further board discussion? Approval of resolution 23/24-09 made by Shelley, seconded by Steve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on, item I4, public hearing on the preliminary environmental assessments report for the proposed 10th school site. Board of Trustees will conduct a public hearing in accordance with Education Code section 17213.1 to accept public comments on the district's proposed PEA report completed for the proposed 10th school site. If anyone would like to provide public comment on this item, please submit a speaker card. The public hearing is now open. Walikevich.
Yeah, this is an item, as part of our 10 site development. We have to have a public hearing, Terraphase Engineering, which you'll be hearing, the next item is an amendment to their contract, but they had to provide a preliminary environmental assessment called a PEA. That binder has been sitting at the district office front staff, open for any public comment. And we also advertised this public hearing and that the preliminary environmental estimate report would be handled tonight at the board, and it was advertised in the local papers.
Any questions from board members? Any requests for public comment? Seeing none. Any further discussion on this agenda item before I close the hearing? Oh, sorry, I should have done that already. Now closed. Assuming we are all okay, moving on to item I5. Amendment to environmental consultant contract with Terraphase Engineering. The Board of Trustees will consider approving a contract amendment with Terraphase Engineering for supplemental scope of environmental services related to the district's ongoing site work at the proposed 10th school site. So,
Sure, as part of the 10 site development, the district entered into a contract with Terraphase Engineering in August of 2019. And then subsequent to that original agreement, there's been 2 amendments. This will be amendment number 3, which will take us all the way to construction documents. It's an extra, let me pull the contract up. It's gonna be additional amendment for an extra $68,800. And this will help take us through construction documents for the 10th site. And preliminary environmental assessment is required by DTSC, CDE, all the plethora of state agencies and regulatory agencies that are on the development of a brand new school site. So this is a routine item, but we did want to bring this amendment to the board as part of the bond project, as part of Measure N and the 10th site development. So we're asking the board to approve this item as amendment number 3 for Terraphase Engineering, and it is an action item.
any questions, my fellow board members? Seeing none, are there any requests for public comment? Seeing none, any further board discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the contract amendment?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Motion made by Vladimir, seconded by Shelley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item I6, 10th site design and construction updates. Mr. Walikevich will share a 10th site design and construction update.
Sure. So last March, we had a study session where we really got to learn about the different construction methods that are available. Now during tonight, we want to, and then the board asked us to come back, bring an update, and kind of talk a little bit about the differences, and then and hopefully provide some staff some direction of next steps. So it's really, last March, we talked about the differences between stick built, which is a design that DSA has never seen. It's a brand new design, and that's really the stick built discussion where it's designed by an architect, and then the builder comes out and builds it on site. Modular, which is, we have a lot of portables. These are buildings that are built somewhere else. They're brought in, trucked in, shipped in. Sometimes they have foundations. Sometimes their foundations have to be constructed. We have a lot of portable classrooms. Those are modular type building. And then a prefab panelized version is kind of, we did a visit to Sacred Heart Prep School in Atherton and looked at their buildings. There's a lot of different options out there in the prefab world. And so we wanted people to look at that and what a panelized system looks like, and we did that last month. So I thought that was a good idea, a good segue really into this presentation. There is a picture of Sacred Heart Prep. That's the exterior of a kindergarten classroom, a very similar style and feel to our current classrooms on the design. Some of the wood on the outside really kind of look like a Los Altos school, but the colors are not our colors, but that was their school colors for Sacred Heart Prep. But this is a panelized exterior, and this is a model called Timber Quest. And ADIS Architects and XL Construction, that's their model. And if you look at like the different types of models, it's almost like a car. They have different models, right? And so we're trying to find out what is a good fit for the district and give you really an idea what the different options and models are out there. This is the interior of a classroom, which some of you have seen, really open framing, built with really nice renewable materials, energy efficient, all the things that we want in our classrooms. We talked a little bit about PG&E bills today, and I'm not looking forward to seeing the increase in my home bills. But I do know classroom design is super important, not only for teaching and learning to happen, but if it's energy efficient, that is good for the environment, and that's what we really want to strive for. So if we can get a design that works well for our students and teachers, but then is also energy efficient, that's really the way to go if we can find that type of design system. There's a lot of different design options, and we kind of want to highlight some of them. Hoover School is in Palo Alto. They're really doing the entire school. And Palo Alto Unified is doing that. That is our neighbor. And as this gets in design, I believe they'll be breaking ground this late spring. And I'm curious to go over there and see it as they start to break ground and see that project come to fruition. But that's a perfect example of really, it can be done for a whole school. And so we looked at this and we said, yeah, if they can do it for a whole school, that might be a great cost-effective option for the 10 site as well. And so we want to look more into this and really share some options for the school board. This is an example of the rendering. As the design started to develop, the rendering became more real. And this is kind of what the front of the school is going to look like. And that really looks pretty inviting as you're walking down the road and you see a school. Or we have such great neighborhood schools. It's nice to see this school design right here. And the Palo Alto Unified is really going to push forward with this project. And this is the back side of the school, 2-story classroom building, highly functional, a lot of classrooms for a lot of students. We feel this is a nice layout. And then going 2 stories is actually very efficient because you can get as much space in a smaller area. You can get more students in there, and that's a good use of the space as well. This is a Project Frog, which is a different model. This is down in Redondo Beach. I actually visited one of this company's projects in South San Francisco, and it was a different version of it, but very similar, prefabricated. It's efficient. You can build it quicker. You save on general conditions. There's less waste because things are built in a shop. They're panelized, so you're going to have less waste. And it's efficient. It can be done quicker. And time is money. We know construction costs have escalated tremendously in the Bay Area. So if you can save on time and installation, you're going to really save a lot of dollars for the taxpayers. This is another example of Skyline Elementary in South San Francisco. And this is kind of like very similar if you kind of look at the interior finishes and things. But, kindergarten classrooms have to be bigger and larger and for the space and the bathroom requirements. So you can see this large building, and it's really a nice open, inviting space for students. So we like seeing these types of different models that are out there because they're really neat to see. This is a Folia block construction model. They've done a lot of middle schools. They've done high schools. This is down in Morgan Hill School District at Britton Middle School. They delivered really a 2-story classroom building in 24 buildings, in 24 classrooms rather, and they can do it pretty quick. I've seen these go up in my previous district. Really amazing concept of building things in a shop, bringing them in on trucks. It cuts down the construction cost. You'd be surprised how quickly it goes by doing this prefabrication work, and the quality is there. A lot of people think, oh, it's prefabricated, the quality's not gonna be there. You can have a 50-year design in the quality of these prefabricated buildings. So it's not like a modular that's going to last 20 or 30 years. The quality is there, and it's gonna be a 50-year design that we expect out of all construction. Panelized construction is prefab. It's built in a shop, which I mentioned. This is a perfect example. They're bringing a whole wall system in on a crane and they put it in place. And it's almost, when we went on that sidewalk, it is kind of like Legos. They kind of bring it and put it together, but it's sturdy, it's DSA approved, it's quality construction. It's just done differently. It's a different way of doing it. It varies by the product and system, but it's really, it's just as sturdy and long lasting as a stick built construction. Some of the pros and cons, stick built, it has infinite options. It's just as limited by the code and it costs a lot more. I always laugh at people and I use the same analogy. I said, sometimes it's nice to have a Lamborghini, but I'm okay with a Honda Pilot, right? We don't need to have exotic designs. I think managing, you can still have high quality and not spend a lot on it. It's a traditional architect, they design it, then you go out to bid either lease back or depending on the delivery method. Panelized though, there is some flexibility, but it's not open-ended. The quality of the space is not limited and the design process varies by the system, but it gives you some flexibility. You can have different types of classroom layouts on the interior is what matters. The exterior is all gonna look kind of the same, but the interior is what matters because that's where learning happens. And so you want that to have some flexibility to give kids an opportunity, but all the panelized prefabrication systems that I've seen are excellent for kids. And I think that's what matters. Some pros and cons of permitting. Stick built, it's tough because it's the first time that DSA has ever seen the drawings. And we in construction, we laugh. DSA bleeds on your drawings. They have a red pen and they mark them all up because they've never seen the drawings before. And then the architect has to go back and make all the changes to meet code or whatever the certain DSA reviewer is looking at. And it has a lot of changes. And then if a builder is bidding on a set of drawings that haven't been DSA approved, that's a risk, right? So usually you have to wait till the drawings are bid on, and also it takes a lot longer for review. Panelized, some of the newer buildings are pre-approved, and they call that a PC, pre-checked. And it's much faster than stick built. There's a lot less change orders, and there's also a lot less waste because they actually build the product in a shop and they're not bringing out pallets of lumber and steel, and then they have to cut all that in perfect dimensions on the site. That's where a lot of waste happens. And then the district or the owner pays for that extra pallets because the contractor is going to order, 1,000 linear feet of 2x4s. And then if they don't need that much, the district or somebody has paid for that. So that's just something to think about. But just permitting alone is time. Cost and schedule, stick build is the slowest to design and build. It is the most expensive option, obviously. And then fabricated panelized is much quicker, depending on how custom you make it. The more customized you make the interior spaces, then that does drive up your cost and also time a little bit as well. So all options that are out there. Durability, high variability of quality and durability, depending on the designer and contractor. If you have a good designer, which we know Brent is a great designer, and we have great builders, and you have good DSA reviewers and a good inspector, usually stick built quality is there, but it does cost more, right? Prefab is there's more products on the market, there's more materials that are very durable that are out there, and it can't be designed for 50-year lifespan. So the pros and cons of durability and quality, they're both very much similar. I think you would probably pay a little bit more for a stick built versus panelized. Environmental concerns, which I kind of mentioned about some of the waste and cost of the stick built versus prefab, but you can still get great LEED certification, high efficient buildings, and those are all very important things about sustainable design. We are in the 21st century, and sustainable design is super important for schools. It's a good model to show the kids that the environment matters, and how you design and construct buildings matters as well. So these are things that we really, I feel passionate about making sure whatever we design is sustainable and is going to last a long time. And then legality requirement. There's a lot of different ways to deliver stick built designs, multiple prime, lease back. Sometimes you go low bid, and those all have pros and cons. Prefabricated, usually design build is the best way to go. There are some prefabricated buildings, but also they also do full service general contracting. There's a lot of moving parts in procurement that has to be done for both methods. They're not easy, so you have to follow a lot of public contract code and ed codes to procure things. So we want to be mindful of those things. So our staff, the business office and Sandra and cabinet, we're really looking at some direction on a stick built or panelized. And then we, obviously, you know, a future meeting could discuss, if asked, to discuss the process, timeline, and then the budget for the different selected method of really what should our next steps be. But we do feel to keep the 10 site process moving forward, that is really looking at what is our design preferred method going to be moving forward.
All right, thank you. Any clarifying questions?
What's a piggyback contract?
Piggyback contract. Someone else has bid out the project and you're going to use their exact contract. So for example, the playground project out here at Covington, that was a piggyback contract. Somebody else bid that project out in a public setting. And then we're going to piggyback off of that contract and use the same contract. So we don't have to actually bid it out anymore. That's a piggyback contract.
It says that they're in, oh, I see, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I think the playground was here at Covington was like the one that we actually did do a piggyback. That was that Omnia contract.
Gotcha. Any further questions? Any requests for public comment? Any further board discussion?
The check.
Yeah.
So tonight, it's what we're gonna discuss is stick built or panelized, but not necessarily who builds the panelized, like Timber Quest or Project Frog or whatever. All that will, if we go that route, all that comes later.
Yeah, so we'll have to put together to let you know, there are some procurement items of what has to be done. You have to, what is the process, and then let the board know about the timeline and the next steps for sure. And we work with legal counsel to make sure we're following the proper procurement steps as well.
Anyone else want to, Steve, Jessica, direction?
Direction wise, I am all in favor of penalized design, build, I think, timeline wise. And what we've seen as it relates to quality, we've only seen one version. We've seen pictures here of other versions. And it's not our grandfather's modular building, I guess, it is up to date, and walking into that the Sacred Heart kinder classroom was like walking into one of our own, if not more updated. So I definitely appreciate it.
John?
I'm all for panelized to move forward in that direction. I know a bunch of us have seen Fremont Union
Yeah.
High School District. And in talking to their trustees, they've had their building now for, I guess, a couple of years, right? And they're happy with it. So, I mean, what we saw is the building part of it, but then what is the experience of the people using it? I have not heard anything but difference.
The only thing I'd ask is that we're looking at vendors, can we make sure once we're talking to have maybe pre-approved two-story plans already on the books? Because that would definitely speed up our building capability time. And kind of make that one of our things as we look at vendors that we review for that as well. I think that would definitely help. Okay.
No, it seems pretty clear to me that analyzed is where to go. I do know that the claims that were made for energy efficiency at the Sacred Heart site were, or maybe not, sustainability. You made the comment about sustainability. They're a little bit dubious there. So I would suggest that we pay attention to sustainability and also to energy efficiency and needs for certification. But analyze seems where they go. Who designs these?
It's just based on the different products. So there's different designers for different products.
So it's a designer that's part of the construction firm?
Depends on what procurement method we do. Palo Alto actually had, ADIS architects design the building, and it was a TimberQuest product at Uber. But then they actually bid out the construction for lease back. So it just depends.
Do we have any designers that we're looking at?
So I think that will be a part of the next steps, now that I hear are getting some direction that this is where we want to move, then we will bring all that information forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think COVID basically has cost us both time and money.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we basically, it's incumbent on us as stewards of the public's money to move forward in a direction that will be as fast and relatively inexpensive as possible.
And I
Okay.
don't think it's gonna have a negative impact on anyone's experience of being in that building,
Never.
you know? I did talk to the kindergarten teacher and I asked her, how do you like this building? And she really liked it. And I don't think she was trying to sell me on stuff because she did mention, you know, a few things about like noise and whatnot, which I don't think we're gonna have that issue. That was a TK or kindergarten classroom, but she really liked it and it worked for her and she was very happy in it. And so I think, like I said, the experience of the people who have to use it, those buildings, I think it'll be perfectly fine.
And to Eric's point about change orders, the nice thing about using the product that people have used before is that they have made the mistakes and you get to correct them rather than making a whole new set of mistakes for every time you design a new building. Is that sufficient direction? Do you guys need
Great.
anything else? All right,
Great, thank you.
thank you very much. Moving on to item I7, CSBA Delegate Assembly nomination.
Yes, there is a time frame ticking and want to give you all an opportunity to nominate anyone or self-nominate who might be interested in joining the delegate assembly for CSBA.
Yeah, we need to have done this by January 7th. So this is our first meeting or last meeting.
Yeah.
I think all candidates have to be nominated by the board.
And they have to be
Yeah.
nominated.
So that's why it's important that they're doing this thing.
And my term just, it will be lapsing, so I would like to run again. Nominating myself.
And I too am nominating myself.
Wow.
For a new term, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the board can nominate both of us.
Yeah, we can absolutely nominate as many of us.
To nominate all.
You know, all of us, yeah.
Indeed.
Anyone else like to be nominated for the? Okay. Sorry, any requests for public comment? I'm guessing. Okay. Moving on, any further board discussion or is someone prepared to make a motion?
Move that we nominate Jessica and Shelley for the CS.
Second.
Any further discussion? Motion by Steve to nominate Jessica Spicer and Shelley Surkey to the CSBA Delegate Assembly. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on, item I8, board policy updates.
Excellent. So this is a typical round of new changes from CSBA to these particular board meetings, board policies. You will note, let me put my glasses on, that 8G, student use of technology, is an update. Whereas when we get to 9, we're actually deleting the old student use policy. It has been changed by CSBA and updated by our district.
Any
Anyhow, so
questions from the
Yeah.
board? Quick questions with the proviso that we try to take detailed discussions offline for bringing back next time, but I actually have a quick question, just because student use of technology and homework and things are on here, and at the AEC conference, one of the topics of discussion was about the usage of AI.
yes.
And one of the suggestions was you might want to update your board policies to make it clear that they were suggesting in particular, students using AI to produce homework and then misrepresenting whether they had done so was a violation of board policy. But it wasn't clear to me whether that would fit into use of technology versus homework versus some other board policy. So I was gonna see what if any, of my fellow trustees had any opinions one way or the other about whether that's something we want to tackle or what.
And I have an opinion. I feel like it's a little bit new
Uh-huh.
in the realm of things, and I know Carrie attended at least one, if not two sessions on AI. I think the county, piece, I think there's still we're feeling out the system to see where the policy where it needs to land.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think it will be coming soon, but we're not quite yet there.
So are we going to include AI in our board policies or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Just a comment about, what is it, Sal Khan? He's delusional. Because I bet that within one day, kids will have figured out a way around his guardrails. And I'm going to, I normally I bet a nickel, but I'm going to raise that to 10 cents.
Wow, double and down.
We do have students using Convigo, over at Block. Sheena V, our fantastic, computer science
We should
teacher.
ask her how many have figured out a way
Yeah,
around it.
I will ask.
It's amazing how creative they can get.
If we do ever discuss AI as
Yes.
a board, I would love to have Sheena come and be part of that
Yeah,
discussion.
to give you an example. It used to be the case that if you typed in as a prompt, please repeat the word forever, or computer forever. It would repeat it a bunch of times, and then it would spew out all its database of what it had learned or where it got the stuff, which of course, you don't want that to happen. But just an example.
Right.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, we'll look for that update because I think it will, if it's not already a live issue, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
Any request for public comment? I'm assuming no. Any further board discussion, or we will see these things back
Yep.
next week, your next
Yes.
meeting? Item I9, board policy deletion. Or see previous item,
Correct.
except slightly different.
Yes.
Any public board discussion? No? All right, moving on. 2J, board and administration comments.
Yeah, we just walked the playground at Covington and we'll be, once we get the inspector to sign off on it, it was really nice. And they have an app. That there's a little QR code out there and then community members that can show up and you can get data on who's using the playground. It's very interesting and how the playground is utilized by people in the community if they want to find a more inclusive playground. So I found it very interesting meeting with the manufacturer. So it's really good information to learn. We'll talk maybe more about it. And then we'll probably talk about next steps.
Can I ask, just on the plate, since you mentioned the playground, if we're gonna do any kind of a press release or or an article in the town crier?
Yeah, we will invite the town crier and Mountain Voice to our little ribbon cutting ceremony. I think the town crier has already run an article. I had talked with Jenna there and sent her actually a picture to let her know that when it was mid-construction. So yes,
Cause it's such a community asset.
it's a great community asset.
Ms. Miano, anything further?
Nothing additional, thank you.
Jessica?
I've got a couple things. I did LASD Community Give Back College Team, LASD Superintendent's Task Force. I went to the most recent SEC MOE meeting, also the SEC SBA Lunch and Learn, where we had Patrick McDonald, the CSB, a government affairs person, speak with us. I used to be an assembly member who was the head of the education committee. So really good fit for CSBA for sure, and for us really. At the PTA president's meeting, met with a prior LASD student, Malik Dakal, who is,
Meeting with them in January.
yeah, and he is being interviewed to be on the state board of education as a student member, and he'll actually be able to vote. Our future is absolutely bright with this
So
young
bright.
man. Like he is more mature than most adults. And he knew what he was talking about. It was pretty impressive. He went to Covington in Egan, and is now at Los Altos High School. And, you know, with all of you, is that AEC. last week. So,
I just wanted to mention that I was at AEC last week. A lot of really good learning, of course, but it's really nice to be able to talk to other school board members across the state, because the Brown Act prevents us from like having meaningful collaborative conversation. But it's nice to see what your fellow board members are doing around the school. So, thank you.
Yeah, like everybody, I was at the annual education conference. The day before the conference, we all attended an advanced governance class, which I thought was excellent.
Yeah.
And there were some suggestions in there so let me just back up a second. I think that we do a lot of what they recommended, we just haven't institutionalized it, or we haven't
Memorialized.
memorialized it. Thank you. And so we need to do that. One of the suggestions that people had was they alternate board meetings between business and then a special topic. And there are probably other, I have my notes here, other ideas from different sessions. And I'd like to suggest that we have at least an item on a future agenda for us all to go through and say, oh, these are the things that I found interesting, here's why. And sort of talk about them and decide maybe pick a couple to move forward on. Yeah, I think that's about it.
You good?
Okay. I don't think I have it.
Carrie?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay. I didn't get that. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. I don't have anything else to add, so I believe that we are adjourned.
excellent.